and that there's something hidden in a birth, yeah, coming into being from the nothing, particularly that you're born. No, you got a tripod in there. Yeah, particularly when you're reborn from the nothing. We're talking about that there's a rega of absolute nothing, and then there's a rebirth. We have to say that the Rebbe is going to work at some length now to show that there's some mila in an embryonic birth compared to fullness of the Levon. And so great is that hidden message in the idea of something being born from the nothing, that we saw that to be the whole important secret of the connection of Yidden with the Gula Shlema, and not the connection of Yidden with the Gula Shlema through the fullness of the Levon. The fullness of the Levon is a great thing, but it's what we call revelation. That's what we call oil and revelation. The birth and the coming into being from the nothing of the Levana indicates what we call atzmi.
Are we talking about the concept of ex nihilo? Are we talking about the concept of ex nihilo?
Ex nihilo?
Ex nihilo.
Love davke the van yesh mi'ayin. We're talking about that when you come out of a state of nothing, that embryonic state has in itself so much potential that's much greater. There's something hidden in that concept which is much greater than when it's full.
Well, that transcends teva.
It's not connected openly with the etzem concept of yesh mi'ayin. It contains in itself that, but we're not talking so much about the power of Hashem to make yesh mi'ayin. That's not what we're talking about. What we're talking about is that there's something hidden in a birth, when something is born, in the actual birth and in the actual small state of the person when he's born. There's something in that which the whole perfection of the discourse doesn't have. If I'm not the Yin of Yesh Mi'ayin, even though I admit to you that there is a Yin of Yesh Mi'ayin here in a way, right? There's a certain trace of Yesh Mi'ayin, but that's not the point the Rebbe is making. You understand? The point is that in that little embryonic state that comes out of the nothing, there's something dearer and more powerful and more essential to the message of Mashiach than the big discus of the Levana. You follow? Because the big discus of the Levana is what we call Giluim, revelations of Oya. This Indian of coming out of the nothing and being like an embryonic state, and being born again, as it were, that's called etzem. There's certain trace in that of atzmiyas. Of the atzmiyas, is mitzad the maila of the katnas itself, not mitzad the yesh mi'ayin. But this is what we're going to see now. So he said, "V'alkoch tzorich leima shebedimin shel hagiula amidis v'ashleima al yidei David malchus Mashiach lamoila to the birth v'chidush alavona v'loi lamilui v'shleimas alavona," and not to compare when the discourse is big. Yemudgeshes maila yeseda sheish b'moilad v'chidush. There's something in the whole idea of a birth and a chidush which is much greater than this whole thing of the perfection of the Levana. Even when something has reached its fullness, over the first start off and the first chiddush of that thing carries in itself a profound message which all the greatness of the milui doesn't have. ובגאולה עשידה לו ועל ידי דוד מלך משיחה תסגלה אצל בני ישראל מיילה זו. Davke that mila of being born out from the new and being like an embryonic state that's come first into the world now. So forget about if I came back from the Koyach Atmas. That's not the Nakuda. Just the very fact that you are a reborn individual, you're a reborn state, that is something hidden in that incomparably greater than if you're already a full, shlemistic state. You follow? And so we've got to work out what is that secret and what is unbelievable minor that's hidden in being born from the new. You follow? Being a firstborn state. That's incomparably greater than when you've reached all your perfection. So what is that? And with that, we'll understand why we dafke say in the bracha of Birchas HaChodesh Hasidim Lechis Chadesh Kamoisa that that's the connection of Yidden with the Gula Shlema. Oh, so that's the point. So that's what we've got to understand. So the Rebbe says, "V'yuvan behektem habiyu v'mailas haleida v'chidish b'Yisrael." Yeah, we have to understand what is the maila of something being born and something being new. Yeah, so the Rebbe said that is the maila of a tinok, of a very small embryonic creature. V'smichas man leidos. Come on, we're not necessarily talking about mom's the moment he comes out of the womb, but after he's already grown a few weeks or a few months or even maybe a year or something like that, but close to the zman of his being born, compared to the moment of months of Yeli Avrish and Asa Godel, compared to when he's already an adult. What's the difference, says the Rebbe, between how he is as a newborn thing compared to how he is as a big person? That's going to be like the two Mishalim. That's going to be the marshal of a newborn moon, and that's going to be the marshal of a big moon. So the Rebbe says, so in other words, the Rebbe is going to play down the adults, and he's going to elevate very greatly the Tinok. So you might say, what is that? When I'm an adult, I'm a big knob. I got all my perfection of all my koiches, and I know what I'm doing, and I do things and I achieve things. When I'm a little tinnik, what do I have? So the Rebbe says, we find a most amazing thing, that Yedua Maimon God will be Yisrael, a very great person, by Eden, that he said, Ani mispalel ladas zeh hatinoik. He said that when I daven, I try to put myself back and daven like a tinok. He said, I try to daven the way a tinok does. Since the tinok doesn't know about all the different lights and their levels inside the Elikus, in Yonei Spheres, all matters of the spheres, Harei Tfilosei, He la HaKodesh Baruch Hu bi'atzmei. He davens straight to a Kodesh Baruch Hu. A tinok goes straight to the Eivester. He doesn't have all the knowledge of the different levels and the things in the meantime and so on. Therefore, he knows no hadikot, he knows no tricks. He just knows that there's a hadikot, Rabbeinu Shalom, and we've got to talk to him. We've got to go straight to him. Now he's completely beyond levels and descriptive terms. When a tinuk davens, he turns only to the very essence of Hashem. He doesn't know anything else. There's a mile in his prayer that a great Makubal amongst Yidden said that he would try, whenever he davens, he tries to daven like a tinuk. Now, that's a very interesting thing. And you should realize, I see you guys all take these things very calmly.
I mean, we're talking about a child now. We're talking now about a child who's after he's born. We're talking about a child who is davening the Eibusher after he's born or before he's born.
Oh no, after he's born. We're talking about the tinuk after he's born.
But we said before that the concept of the etzem is before he's born.
No, I didn't say no such thing. I just said that there's a mile in the concept of a chidush, of coming out into a being. That's atzmiyas, and the milu helavon is like gilui.
But you said that's a moment before he was born.
No, I didn't say that. No, that's a mishearing. I never said such. Avamela says the Rebbe, what should I call it? By the way, this is a maimah from the Rebbe of Tzemach Tzedek in Derech Mitzvah Sefer. In Shar, not Shar, what's the name? SHIUR Mitzvah Tefillah. It's the biggest maimah in Derech Mitzvah Sefer. And over there, not far from the beginning of the maimah, the Rebbe of Tzemach Tzedek quotes two big mukubarim. One he calls the Rabbeinu Yosef David, and he doesn't mention his surname. And he talks about the whole idea of the spheres. They have to daven through the spheres, but you have to be makavin, that Hashem will tell the spheres what to do, and you're not really davening to the spheres, but you are, and you're not. And he's mataretz, how that fits in with the fact that you have to daven to Hashem on his own. Yeah, how does that fit in? So the Tzemach Tzedek says, you know, a whole big beer, I like you better when you got your hat off, because then I can see you. I say, I don't see you.
Cold.
You cover your face with your hat, I don't see you. It's a minute. The Tzemach Tzedek goes into great detail, and he brings kashas from other great Rishonim on that whole concept. And then he said there was another great Makubal, even, you know, equal in greatness to this other person, and he was called the Rabbeinu Shimshon Mi Kiduvoin, or something like that. Yeah. He mentions where he's from. And he was a very great Makubal, and they asked him, you know, what are you mechavan when you daven? What are your kavanas? And he said, Harei ani mispalel kedah zeh hatino. That's what he answered. So the Tzemach Tzedek says, you know, it's a huge difference. This other Makubal, he went into all the different spheres and how they relate to Hashem, and they don't, but they do, and they're botil, and Hashem tells them what to do and what they do, and they, you don't really daven to them, and the whole tremendous union. And when I get to this Rabbeinu Shimshon, he said, forget about it. He said, when I daven, I make myself like a tinnik. I try to daven like a tinnik. The das, zeh hatino. You follow? So the Rebbe, the Tzemach Tzedek over there, you know, he says, what's the mile of this tinnik business? And so he goes into a huge, big, long areas, and here the Rebbe is going to sum it up, but in a very amazing nusach of his own. The Rebbe is going to come here with a certain kvetch or two, which you don't even find them over there in the directions we said. And let's begin. So the Rebbe says,
That's a question. I never understood why the Eibishter wants, why would people want to daven through the spheres?
Why would people want to daven to the sphere?
No, not to the spheres, but why what is the concept the Eibishter wants that the people should know about the spheres, and they should not come into the spheres,
and then tell them not to make any to pay any attention.
Well,
see, the thing is, the question is whether you have to know about the spheres and know their function in the Yistalshalos of the Olamas, or whether you have to pray to the spheres. You got that idea? Or Be'ikar, your whole tefillah as avodah is based on the sphere. That's for sure that nobody would question the necessity of the spheres in the Yistalshalos of the Olamas. Ki through the essence spheres of Atzilus, Hashem makes the Iker Mamutza between the Ein Sof, as Lamayla Me'olamas, and the Olamas. And the essence spheres are Genuzes or Madrega Lifnese. We need the essence spheres because they're the whole Iker Mamutza, the Elikuz is Nimshach to the Olamas. Yeah? In other words, that Hashem wanted there should be this whole Seder of Olamas Mukbali and the whole thing to get eventually to Taktoinim. So in order to do that, he has the essence sphere. That everybody agrees that that's a tremendous knowledge. You have to know that, and you have to know how they interrelate and why, and you know how they're part of the Ein Sof and yet they're not, and the whole amazing story of the essence sphere. The whole question here is whether our prayer, since these essence spheres are like part of the whole way that Hashem relates to the world, whether we have to make them also a leading factor in our prayer, that we ask that Hashem should affect us also through the sphere. You follow? The point of this Rabbeinu Shimshon is that he says, you have to know all about the spheres. He said, when it comes to davening's another inyan. And how do I know that? Where do we see that? Because it's written in the Sifri, a very famous Sifri, but the Rebbe that Tzemach Tzedek talks about it over there at great length. Eilov v'lo lamidoso. There's when you pray, you have to pray. Yeah, precisely to him. I think you've even put on a little bit of weight.
Yeah, America, you know.
And the Kunst im Rebbe wird man gesund. Es auch von ihm, as it's written a posting in the Torah, Mika Hashem Elokeinu b'chol koirenu eilo. If we call, we have to call to him. So the Hedikot Sifri says, eilo v'lo lamidoso. all prayers have to be only to him, but not to his midah. You follow? And so how does that fit in with this other makubal that he said you have to be mechav to the spirits? And the other great makubalim also said the same thing. Well, therefore, he is mishtatel to answer that you don't really mean the spirits, you mean Hashem, but you have to go through the spirits, and Hashem has to tell the spirits, and a whole sort of, but they're all trying to fit in with this idea that a law of in the prayer of Yidden. That's the whole issue here. But the very existence of the Esespheres and their relationship to the whole Seder, the Gilei Lakus and the Elam, that everybody agrees that we need to know. The whole thing is going to get to our Veda. So therefore, that's a big kiddush of this, and that's what the Rebbe is going to develop now on the most amazing. I've never seen anything quite like how the Rebbe builds this case for a tinuk. It's absolutely amazing. How are we supposed to do it? So the other extreme was this Rabbeinu Shimshon. And he said, when it comes to davening, you daven only to him, but you do it like a tinuk does. Because if you don't, then you're going to somehow or another become involved, like a godel, a person who's very adult, he's got a lot of knowledge, he will somehow or another mix in other ideas. He won't be able to go straight to Hashem. So he says, therefore, you have to put yourself down again and be like a tinoik, and then start davening. So that's what the Rebbe sees in the Maila, the Chidush Alavona, not the Koyach Yeshmiah. Or the Chidush Alavona is a tinoik, a tinoik. So what's the Maila of a tinoik? So the Rebbe says, this and this, you're going to be the Maila of the tinoik. And he said in a general way that the Maila of the tinoik is that he just goes straight to Hashem. He doesn't know yet he even dream about the Esespheres or all the Shtalshalas or all the Inyonim. He just says, HaKadosh Baruch Hu. He just goes straight. He's beyond all the questions of the descriptive names or the other names or the madregas. He just goes straight to the episode. However, that's just a general thing. So the Rebbe says, so we've got to go deeper than that to understand the whole idea. Even, he said, there's a maila over the tinoik, even over the person who's trying to be like a tinoik. In other words, this great chokhmah, he does ladas tinoik. Nonetheless, the Rebbe says there's a difference between him and the actual tinoik. Even though he's trying to be like a tinoik, the tinoik is bigger in a certain way even than him. How? He says, God will be Israel, a great person who's grown up and he's adult already, given shiur umei vinu masi binyone asfiras chulu. Not just Davkid the spirit, all the elements and everything. He already knows about that, yeah? If he's a great person, particularly, for sure he does. And what does he have to do in order to daven like a tinoik? He has to tzorik lishloel. He has to cancel out, and he call it negate. The word lishloel means to negate. Tzorik lishloel kol hadagas v'toyorim. All the madregas and all the descriptive names of Hashem, he's got to cancel them all out. He's got to, as it were, be busy with putting them out of his mind almost, as you might say. He's got to try and keep that free, that he's got to try and oblige himself to be mechavan only to Hashem, and not to the spheres or to any other factors. How's he going to do that? That he's mitbonen, he reflects very deeply. Shekola dargis, all the levels, v'atoyarim, and the descriptive names of Hashem, Shemevin u'masik, heimrak toyarei ashlila. They are all it's negative things, because nobody ever meant that Hashem in himself really has these inyonim. To say that there's a spheres hachesed in Hashem's etzim, nobody would say that. Yeah, if he wants to daven directly to Hashem, then he's got to realize that all these terminologies and spheres and names and everything, they're really divrei shlila. They're really saying Hashem is not that. He's got that, but he's not it. You understand? It's unbelievable. Ula dogma, Indian yochel. There's an Indian of how to call it, how do you say yochel? No. Omnipotence, how do you say omnipotence, the ability that Hashem can, as it were, do anything. He's got this whole in of omnipotence, ability, unlimited ability. So he says, "Nema lov is borah, who mafshit b'menu is borah, kol mashu hi heipach hayecholos." How does a person know Hashem's? He doesn't know Hashem's yecholos. How does he know what Hashem's yecholos? So he has to cancel out in his mind anything which wouldn't be yecholos. He has to picture that and then say, but Hashem doesn't. Hashem's yecholos is really much more than that. In other words, he can only work through negating certain inyonim and concepts, and through that he reaches a much more pure grasp of what Hashem is really in his essence. For example, the inyan Hashem, rather the inyan for Chokhmah is not there Hashem's essence. So he has to be shoylol the inyan for Chokhmah, or he writes his will. Now, will is a very high madrega, and yet nonetheless, that's not Hashem. In other words, he's misbein and all that, and he says, yes, so mafshit b'menu is barak kol mashu eipach ha-chokhmah. Avada, you can't say that Hashem is eipach ha-chokhmah, chas v'sholim. But what he really is, we don't know. We can only say that he's not that, and he's not chas v'sholom, the hebel of that, but what he really is, we haven't reached yet. What is this person busy with? He's busy with shlila of things which he's only taking away from or putting into Hashem's etzem, atzmiyas, but he's not really going straight to the atzmiyas. You understand? He's busy the whole time because as we're putting these things out of the atzmiyas. He said, "V'kach hoylech u'mashit b'shoylel." And he cancels out from level after level, from one great achievement to the other, and he comes to the ultimate final aim of all knowledge, we don't know. He comes to realize, that the tachlis of all these things that he's doing is of course what's going to be the final conclusion that he doesn't know anyway. Tachlis hayidiyah, he's going to come to the highest possible knowledge. What does that tell you once you reach that level? We don't know. And Kudos that his whole tremendous effort brings him to a point of negation. He reaches and he said, I'm sorry, I can't really know you. I can only say what you're not. I can't really reach you directly. And that's the tachlis hayidiyah shaloi neda. שמגיע למסקנה שלא ישייך שום ידיעה והסוגה במהות ועצמוסי. He tells himself that there's no knowledge or grasp of seichel in mahut v'atzmos. That's what he comes to a conclusion. כיוון שמגיע לזה על ידי שלילת כל הדרגות והתוארים, הרי גם כשכוונו זה לעצמוס יסבורך שלמעלה מכל דרגה ותויה ומעלה, לדעת זה עתידים, נרגש אצלו בזה גופה עילוי והפלואה. He feels like a still greater wondrousness that he hasn't reached. Even though he will completely negate all these things from Hashem, and he will try to be mechavan to Hashem, but nonetheless he will feel, who is my Hashem? My Hashem is not all these things that I've learned about. He's really not that. Yet when he thinks about Hashem, he's thinking of a great elevation and a hafloa, a wondrousness from all that he's been connected with. So Kulta is that he's not really feeling Hashem's essence. He's feeling Hashem's essence is wondrous and withdraw completely all that he's known. What does that mean? To a certain extent, he's still back with all those things. You follow? Since he feels that Hashem is wondrous and beyond them, then in case he's still, to a certain extent, he's back at home with them. Which means that he doesn't really reach Hashem's atzmas mamis. He said, "V'lo yoid." That's not enough. He feels what a wondrous mila there is in all this activity of being cancelling things out. And he comes to a certain enthusiasm in saying what's not. he doesn't really have a tremendous koch in what is. So, his feeling becomes involved in a thing which is basically negation. That's what the Arab said. When you think about it, it's just so immense, It's just so much to the point that a great person is busy the whole time saying Hashem is not this, no, not that, because he wants to daven only to Hashem and not to his midas, but he never gets away from the midas, because somehow or another, since he's cancelling all the midas out, he's still got a bit of a kesher with them. And he feels only, as it were, an elevation and a wondrousness from the midas. In Cain, he's still, as it were, back home with them. Somehow still connected to them. He said, Mashkin a tinnik? He said, when a tinnik davens, Kivin she'ein lo imusig. He doesn't have any knowledge cloud of all the dargas and all the teyarim. Ve'enu tzorik lishlil dargas. He doesn't have to cancel them out. He doesn't have to act in a way of hasogas hashlila. This whole aspect of negating things. He's mitkaven to Hashem, they're straight. He just goes straight to the Eivester. The guy who knows all the things and he knows that he's not allowed to have them in mind, he's got to keep putting them out and going higher, and he never really gets away. There's always a certain kesher in regish with those inyonim. He said, however, the tinnik, he doesn't know. He doesn't have to negate anything. He doesn't have to work at anything because he doesn't know about it. So there's a mailing that says that he just davens straight to Hashem. When he davens straight to Hashem. And he said, Kavanosei la Kodesh Baruch Hu ba'atzmai, she'ena begeder, that the Eibush is beklal, not in the whole definitional concept of any descriptive term or mila or anything like that. Ela atzmas mohu, the very etzem and the very mahu, the very essence of Hashem. He just goes straight with his tefillah to that. The Tinnik wouldn't use a phrase for Hashem Atzmas Mahuz. Yes, Pirush to Atzmas, but Pirush to Mahuz. He doesn't know what those words mean. Ela Hashem Stam. Hashem, Hashem Stam. She'ena Begeda Darge V'toya Hashem. He's not in that whole thing. Says that it's an amazing thing. The highest we could ever get is to describe Hashem as Atzmas Mahuz. We see the very essence and the Mahuz of Elokus. So the Rebbe said to Tinnik, he doesn't know what Atzmas is, he doesn't know what Mahuz is. Yeah, and the truth of the matter is that the Eibishter is really higher than Atzmas Mahuz. As he brings it and it's become a Mekayim. The very essence of Hashem is just completely beyond anything. I feel that the term Atzmas Mahuz is like a name, it's like a certain term. And it limits certain inyonim in the whole concept of divinity to the concept of Etzem or Mahuz. However, Hashem is just so completely beyond all concepts that even Atzmas Mahuz is like a name. It's like a limiting state or concept. And therefore he said the Tinnik doesn't have that problem. He doesn't, because even if you said to him, he wouldn't know what you're talking about. And the he goes directly to the evidence. And the Rebbe's got an amazing footnote here, absolutely amazing footnote. And the Rebbe says that people will kinda over the child being as a small child. He hasn't grown up yet, so he might even picture the Abbas like something Gashmi. He might think that, the Abbas is, who knows, some big man with a beard or something. So the Rebbe says it doesn't matter, because since he's praying to the very essence, and the very mahus of Hashem, so he said the very essence of divinity is higher than Gashmias, just like he's higher than Ruchnias. Ruchnias and Gashmias are both entities. Hashem is beyond completely all entities. So he said how Hashem is in his emerson state, he doesn't mind Gashmias. Gashmias doesn't disturb him at all. Why? Because Ruchnias is just absolutely nothing, just like Gashmias is. If the Tinnik has in mind anything Gashmi, since he's being mechaber to Hashem's very essence, the Gashmias doesn't interfere. That's what the Rebbe says, the most amazing thing. Even if the child will think about a picture in his mind, that doesn't disturb anything. Because he's going directly to Hashem. That's an absolutely mind-boggling thing. Yeah. The Rebbe said, "V'gam kavisha nikva rosh in Yiddish." Even the way the Eibush is called in Yiddish, der Eibushter, and der Eibushter means Elyon. Shapirushay Elyon. What Elyon means, the Eibushter, whatever madrega you will take in madregas, the Eibush is higher than that. He's beyond that altogether. How do you call it? He's Elyon. What Elyon means, wherever you will be, he is incomparably beyond you. So he said, that's the word Eibushter. Shapirushay Elyon. Ein kavonas atinik lataya ha'ilui va'afloa to Metzius is born. The Tinnik, when he says the Eibushter, he doesn't mean he will got certain madregas, and the Eibush is incomparably higher than that. And the more we go up to Elam HaKudim, or to Ak or something, and we'll say, no, but Hashem is really, much higher than that. He said he doesn't take into account all of these different milas in the word Eibushter. You follow? He just knows that when you say Eibushter, you mean Hashem is Elyon. He's beyond. He's the highest possible thing. The king just knows that the Eibush is beyond everything. He's just, wherever you are, he's, as it were, he's Maila. He said, he said, apart from the fact that the Eibush is there, he doesn't really know what Hashem's Matthias is. He knows that there is a Matthias. Although with Duke how it is, he doesn't know. And the truth of the matter is that that's a mile also of the Tinnik. The fact that he doesn't know anything about Hashem's Matthias is a good thing, because even if you say the word Matthias about Hashem, that's also not exact. Because Matthias means that he's got some sort of entity, and Hashem is not an entity. Yeah? So therefore the Rebbe says you can't say about Hashem, B'emes, not the word Matthias, not the word Inyan, not the word Dovo, or anything like that. You can't say that about Hashem. So he says, Kiven shegam b'teivas elu yesh toichen v'geder masuyah. In such words, Matthias implies the idea of an existing entity. If you say a thing implies some sort of thing. Yeah? Hashem is completely beyond that altogether. The fact that the Tinoi knows that he's there, but he doesn't know anything about his Matthias, that's a tremendous milah. Because he's there, but he's not a Matthias. So the fact that the Tinnik doesn't know anything about his Matthias, that's really the truth. Yeah, because he's there, but not in a way that we know. And that's what the great Rishonim that's brought down in the works of the Rishonim, they write about the Eibush that he's a Matthias, bebilti Matthias, nimta. He's a Matthias, but he's not a Matthias. He's a Matthias, he's there, but you can't say that he's a Matthias. Because at the regular you say that he's a Matthias, you've limited him somehow. So that's what they say, that the Eibush is a Matthias, bebilti Matthias, nimta. It's mamish a pilipla. So the Rebbe said, when the Tinei daven, that's what he means. That's what he has in mind. So therefore, I've never seen the license before. And he said, since we want to talk about the Eibush occasionally, we've got to find some sort of word. We can't just say, something. You've got to call him some sort of word. So he said, Matsui. Therefore, the Rambam says at the beginning, Yesh Matsui Rishon. Matsui, a found being. Not a Matthias, but something which is found. And we don't know what it is called. So therefore he said, we use the word Matsui. Or Barosh Rabbeinu Azokin. However, the Alter Rebbe uses the expression Hamo'oya. In the famous Maimon Pasha Vayer in Torah, the Alter Rebbe says that Hamo'oya is Behizgalit. That the ultimate atzmius of Hashem is always there. It's always begolui. It's not shy to hide it or to reveal it from its hiddenness. It's just revealed in its very essence. It's just there in its very essence, and anybody can get to it. The difficulty is that since we're so limited, we can't really get to it. And therefore he said the Tinoikes and the Noshim they're also like Tinoikes, they don't really busy themselves as much. They Arab also, yeah. This is going down on record, is they also have that mila that when they say Hashem, they mean He's just there, not how He's there or what He's there, what's going to be the way we understand Him. They're not concerned with that. They just say that. So the Alter Rebbe calls that ma'or. So the Rebbe said, but the word ma'or is also a description. Why does the Alter Rebbe use that word ma'or? Because the Alter Rebbe wanted to stress the gilui, that is always there, and if you just turn to it, it's not hidden from you. It's there. He's beyond Helem, and He's beyond gilui. He's just begilui. He's just there. That's why the Alter Rebbe used the word ma'or. He said, why? Because who behishkalas, he's just there by definition, approachable, He's there, He's not hidden. And that's why the Alter Rebbe called Him Ma'or. But not because he meant that the Eibishter was a Ma'or, because a Ma'or is also a description. So there he says, Nimtza lamata kamoi lamayla. He's just everywhere on the same madrega. That's not trying to say He's more peculiar b'shamayim than He is mitakas la'oretz. He's just peculiar everywhere, because by definition He's what He is. And therefore that's why the Alter Rebbe used the word ma'or, but not because the word ma'or is really a name for Hashem. He said, "V'lochein afilu tenoiges yoidim she'yesham elakar matzui." And that's one of the expressions that the Rambam uses. Imitas himotza'o, right at the beginning of his great work. Also, that's what the Rambam wants. That's why he puts in the word imitas himatza'o. Himatza'o means He is being found there in a real way, in an emes way. And the Rebbe writes in the footnote that the word emes comes to say that it's not any way that we know. He's just there in a way that's beyond all possibilities of limiting it in any way. Amitias himoto, or He's there. And that's the only way you can talk about Hashem. And that's why the Rambam says, that's Hashem, Amitas himoto. That's an amazing thing. Kudosh says the Rambam is Mami's bullseye. What the Rambam said, He's there. And that being there is beyond being hidden or being there. He's just there. Immediate is himoto. It's not shy to ever imagine that He wouldn't be in that way, or He would be another way, or something. It's just an everlasting, eternal state of being which everybody can reach. He's beyond everybody, but everybody can reach. It's unbelievable. So he says that how do you call it? The tinoi, that's what he goes to. That's when the tinoi turns to Hashem, that's where he's turning to the, how do you call it? Elokam Matzui. America teitzor mizeh, mispatei achilu beineim gam biyachas l'daris u'metzias ha'odom shemiskasha im Elokus. So another Rebbe is going to say, I don't know if we're going to have time to finish the whole Orichet, but the Rebbe said that's the inyan of Elokus versus the world. Yeah, that's it. So he said now, because that's the case, there's going to be a difference in how a grown person approaches that unbelievable found entity, which is Hashem, or not even entity, that's a found existence, which is Hashem, by a big person compared to a tinok. What is the madrega in him that relates to all this? We've just shown that they have different relations, and it's the way they approach, but what ultimately is really the state within each of them which approaches Hashem. So the Rebbe is going to, I'll just give you a brief picture of what the Rebbe is going to say. And he says, by an adult, he said, he reaches Yechida Shebanefesh. Over Yechida Shebanefesh is a name. It's a name for one of the madrigas in the soul. If it's a name, it's not the real madriga of the neshama. It's only a name. He's assuming that your real neshama is even higher than that, incomparable. So he said that the Godel, because he's busy so much with all this shlila and with everything, he gets up to a higher madriga, but a name, a level of the neshama. And it's a very high debate, but it's only a certain level.
It's limited.
Yeah. And he said a tinnik, since he doesn't have all of that, he goes into that level which is etzem sheba etzem. Not even yechida, but even higher than yechida. And then the Rebbe says a most amazing thing, a little bit further down here, on the next page, the Rebbe says that the tinnik reaches even l'mayla the chelik elakam mimayel. That's very hard to understand. Because chelik elakam mimayel means you're a chip off the old block. What does that mean? You're a chip of Elikuz. How could you sort of reach a level even higher than that? That's what the Rebbe said. That since he just going directly to Hashem, then the madrega which comes out in the tinnik is higher than anything that we can describe to the neshama. So just like the tinnik relates to Hashem, how we can't describe it and there's no description, in the person approaching Hashem, he also reaches that level. He reaches beyond Yechida even, the very etzem. Mashenkin, the adult, he's lucky if he reaches Yechida. That's what the Rebbe said. Oh, but the mamish reach the absolute simplicity of the neshama, how it's beyond Yechida, only the tinnik reaches it. And therefore, that's why the Reb Shimshon, that we quoted earlier, he said he wants to daven kedah zeh tinnik. He wants to form a connection that way. And maybe he was matzliach to somehow or another put his whole self aside. But the Rebbe said even that is like a conscious act. Putting yourself aside in the form of Mesiras Nefesh is also like a madrega inside yourself. A tinnik, he says, he doesn't have Mesiras Nefesh. He is higher than your whole Mesiras Nefesh just by definition of his very approach to the union. He's already higher than your Mesiras Nefesh. That's what the Rebbe says. Philip, it follows what he said, that that's why we say Moida Ani Lefanecha before anything. As soon as we wake up, the Rebbe said, oh, there's even a madrega before Moida Ani, even though that's a tremendously high madrega. And what's that? He said, just the very fact that you woke up. He said, before you woke up, you were not around, you weren't there. Yeah, it's like as if you're not there. When you wake up, all of a sudden you become a very indefinable, infinitesimal material. You just woke up, you're there. So that is beyond everything. That's even higher than Moida Ani. And Moida Ani is already beginning of a certain coming into levels. Also it's a very high level. It's coming into certain. He said, but when you're before Moida Ani, then that's a madrega of the etzem matzias of Hayid. In the highest possible way. That's when you got to think about Mashiach. That's what the Rebbe said. At that moment, even before you say Moed Ani, you have to hack your cup into Mashiach. Yeah. Now we're getting somewhere. You got to hack your cup into Mashiach even before Moed Ani. Even though Moed Ani lifts it up tremendously high, but he said that.
Does it say that inside here?
Huh?
Does it say that inside here?
Yeah, he does. Yeah. You're right.
Where
a bit further on.
In both? In both?
Yeah, I'll show it to you. I'll soon tell you. So he said...
In Hay, both?
It's on page 81.
Okay.
And it's halfway down the page. It begins with vayishlach. You see that?
She'inyan zeh mudgash.
She'inyan zeh mudgash b'mayim v'domatov deniyo mishnosei. Just waking up from your sleep. Yeah, he said, Shana zeh beria chadosha ketinoi shenoi lad. Od lifnei she'yizkel b'amiras moedani. You see? Before it begins saying moedani. He's dropping to sleep. He's been on the plane. It's, so it comes out that there's the states that we don't really think about. Moedani is a tremendous lavender, but there's a state where you're before Moedani. You just woke up. And remember, that's like a chidush be'etzem of your etzem matzias. Yeah, that's a chidush, just a molad. That's like the newborn state. He said, then you're just like the tinnik. So he said, at that moment, you have to hack yourself into thinking about Mashiach. He said, then it comes out that your whole Mitzvah, you're beyond any revelation. Just like the Tinoi is going straight to Hashem with the Etzem and Nakuda, which is Mashiach. You're before anything. You just come into being.
Is this the reason for the Baal Shem Tov's affinity to the simple people?
I'm saying?
Is this the reason for the Baal Shem Tov's affinity towards the simple folk?
Oh, yeah. That's a very intelligent remark. You should realize that's brought down in Chassidus, what you just said. But the reason the Baal Shem Tov liked, because he saw that the simplicity of a simple Yid takes the simplicity of the Atzmi. You follow? What did he mean? The simplicity is beyond words, it's beyond concepts, it's beyond the simplicity of a Yid. That takes the simplicity of the Atzmi. As the Friedrich Rebbe writes it in the, what do you call it? In the Likuti Diburim, and also in the Sefer memoirs, what's it called? The Zichrin, that the Lubavitcher Rebbe stated in the second volume. Yeah, that's a very good point that you make. In other words, that the simple Yid, he's like before Moed Ani. He's got a certain newness and simplicity of a whole, how do you call it, perfection of a state that links up with the perfection of the Atzma. Amen. Nachon. Nachon. So there we are, guys.
Shkoch.
That's it is. And I've never seen a secret this. But the way the Rebbe goes on, before Moed Ani, is obviously when you first wake up, it's just like a shapeless new tears before anything. He says, Moed Ani is a tremendous thing. He lifts it up very high, but then he said there's a state even before Moed Ani.
That's why I wanted to go to sleep, I couldn't wait. That's why I wanted to go to sleep, I couldn't wait.
Why is that moment called the level of Mashiach? Why is that moment, when he wakes up, called the moment of Mashiach?
When the woman...
That moment, in the morning, before Moed Ani, why is that the Dagar of Mashiach? It's the Dagar of Etzem.
Yeah.
Why do we call that Mashiach?
Oh, what's that got to do with Moshiach? Well, because the whole meaning of Moshiach is like a new state, a chiddush in the whole Bria. The whole Moshiach is going to be Moshanim and bring the Yinim Megillah El-Kus into the whole Bria, but they're chiddush. Well, that's the whole connection with the chiddush al-Avon, all we saw before. But when you wake up in the morning, that's like you're reborn. As you have to link with the rebirth of the world, and that's Mashiach.
Usually we say that the Mashiach or the Nasi is the Yechida Klalis.
Yeah.
Here we're saying that no.
Yeah, but Okuntus is even higher than Yechida. He's just the Yechida Klalis of the ganze Klal. There's a state which is even higher than that, both in Mashiach and by Yid. That's this Madrega. That's the Madrega of the Tinei. And that's the Indian wanted this Reb Shimshon meant that he's mispal the das zeh hatinoi. He's trying to get out of all that he knows to get back to the Indian of the Tinoi. It's an amazing idea that the Tinnik is this whole Indian of his chachas of a completely new Matthias, higher than all shape, and higher than all descriptive terms, higher than his socials, to go straight at the Etzem, even if it will picture the Etzem in a physical way. It doesn't matter. That's what he says in the footnote.
It's the other way around. If you don't talk to a child with a physical example, you mix them up.
Yeah, you don't touch a child.
No. And then when you speak to a child about the Eibishter,
yeah.
You have to speak that he has a hand in his head. If not, they don't understand what you're talking about.
Yeah. It's Mamela by us, by grown people, those are toyarim, and you have to be shoyl on them. You got to say lo v'loy l'midoyta. It's just l'shachech es oezen. Or with a tinnik, ain't no chanam. With a tinnik, he just puts that into the atom. It doesn't disturb him.
What age does a child stop being a tinok?
45, 46.
45?
That happens at bar mitzvah?
I don't know. It's a very good question. I would say that the later the better. You understand? The later the better. The trouble is with most of us that we've stopped being teenagers too early. How do you say? Ayida chacham. You know, he thinks already that he knows. The halt is a vayishlach. That was the mile this Reb Shimon Shaitot in SHIUR Mitzvah Tefillah. Shaitot that he was a great makubal. And that's why Panu Elav. They wanted to know, how do you daven? So he said, I don't daven that way at all. I want to be a tin. I want to daven to be a tin. I know it's much from that that is the way that you really reach the true perfection of Elo V'lo L'Midaisa. Once you've been a Godel, you're never going to quite make it back to be a tin. That's what's much from the whole thing. He wanted that, but whether he would ever actually achieve that with the full perfection, vayishlach. Had he could once you beat a chacham, then this is a gering sever told him. Once you beat a chacham, and that's what the famous story with the Bilo, you know, when he met up with this Misnagid. And the Snagid said to Rav Hillel, he said, Rav Hillel said to him, what's the token of your Veda? How do you? So the Snagid said, all my life I've been struggling to be Epes. But in Yiddish the word Epes means something. You understand? So Rav Hillel said, oh yes. He said, all my life I've been struggling how to be Epes. It's the same word, but it's... well, I don't know if it's with an maybe it's with an iron, but it's the same word, but the pay is with other doggies. Yeah, Ephes. Yeah, Ephes means absolute nothing. And what did he say? On another occasion, he said something about. Also in that line, there's another famous statement from Hill that indicates the same general idea. That the whole token of his knowledge and all of his unbelievable achievement is that he should be able to go back to start all over again. Elo V'lo L'Midaisa. Yeah. You know, it's pretty powerful stuff. I mean, this is most unbelievable. I mean, this just revolutionizes the whole sense of human knowledge and human approach, and that's what you said very wisely, that is Yesh Loima, the whole connection with the simple Yid in the whole folklore of the Baal Shem Tov, the whole message that the Baal Shem is connected with the Ish Poshet, you know, and the Mesuz Neves with them, the Baal Shem, and that's the concept of the Ish Poshet, you know, Elo V'lo L'Midaisa. Yeah, pretty close. Well, the same thing has to be when I get to Moshiach. We don't really, miss nishmasi the whole Indian that the Rebbe is campaigning for Moshiach. The way to be part of it is, how do you call it, l'das zeh hatinik. To be like a small child. The Rebbe says Moshiach is Moshiach. I think it was
The Rebbe Rayat says the Mashiach is Or Atzmi. Mashiach is Or Atzmi. Yeah. And that's something beyond our understanding.
Yeah, I don't know. Yeah. Or Atzmi means it's not really a oil. No, it's a gili on the Atzmi. You follow? It's a oil, but it's not. That's what the Zohar Kodesh says. Lav inun nohirin. But these lights are not really lights. But the skili atzmus. Yeah, it's a tough one. Because anything which is light is only how they call Gilui.
Yeah, only.
It's Gilui. And therefore it's a oir, but it's atzmi. The Rebbe Hashem calls it Helem ha'atzmas. It's him himself. I remember Reb Noam used to say, Helem ha'atzmas. Das is er alleen, das is him. That's him.
A free translation? How about a free translation?
Mm-hmm.
A free translation of what you said.
It's written in the Chassidus of the Rebbe Hashem in quite a number of places, the concealment of the atzmas. So Reb Noam Goldschmidt, you say, what is the concealment of the atzmas? That is the atzmas, that's him. And the word Hilem is just a way of getting you out of any possible ideas. But what really means the atzmas.
Is this for bragging material or that's something Shabbos food?
Yes, it does. Okay. Something brief. I gotta get home pretty worn out.
Quick.
I gave a long shift lorry today in the curl and I blew it. I just always took my mind with it.
You gonna shut that up then?
Off the record.